Hi, welcome to Jesus TV, streaming live on Jesus Radio also. And so Greg Muller here and Jonathan McCormick there in Arizona, Greg Muller in Spring City, Utah. And this is episode 3 of Poetry and Prophecy on Jesus TV, a television program where we're looking at prophetic poems. And Jonathan has one for us. So Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you to read that.
Okay, sorry, I'm always trying to figure out the lighting in this fan, so it's kind of strange. I think that's the best I'm going to get though. So, just a second. Did I actually title it Purposeful Imagination?
Yep.
Okay, I just found it. All right, Purposeful Imagination. So religion contains certain performances, things people do in order to focus the mind in a certain direction. For example, the Lord's Supper. It's intended to cause the initiate to imagine that they are actually partaking of Christ himself, ingesting him and thus becoming him by continued partaking and remembrance. In other words, ingesting him and becoming him by continued partaking and remembrance. If this is done intentionally, it is an exercise of the mind. It is a purposeful imagination, and purposeful imagination has the power to transform. The biggest struggle with such performances is that they happen but once per week or month, or worse, only once per year, or once per lifetime. Better to weave such purposeful imagination into the fabric of every day. Let every morsel be the blood and body. Let every step be a renewal of our faith. And thus, perhaps, through constant remembrance, be transformed by constant purposeful imaginations into the very thing he desires us to be.
Excellent. All right. Well, comment upon that poem. Tell me about it line by line here.
Okay, well, I'll start out, I guess. So religion contains certain performances, things people do in order to focus the mind in a certain direction. So the subject that I was thinking about at the time that I wrote it was about just that itself. So religion, so it seems like at the beginning of a religious movement, if it's inspired of a higher source, you'd say, it begins with spirit-filled people. So people who are actually actuated by the divine, and the movement will then continue past their lifetimes, and people will go back and they'll read inspired words written by that person and be moved by those words. And then and even if people can kind of grasp this too, in the sense that, like, even if you have a certain framework of belief, if you have a mind that's open enough that you can kind of look over the fence toward people of a different faith, with an open enough mind to consider, it's like, well, I know that I can sense that the divine, what I'm a part of was divinely orchestrated by the heavens. Awesome. So then that it's not too far out of our imagination to imagine that if I look over the fence at somebody else's framework, you know, especially wherein you can see that that framework feeds those people and it helps them to live good lives, to have the love of God in their hearts, or if they don't call it God, the love of all of creation or the universe. We can see good things across the fence. Now, religion, as time goes on, it's like there's religion at its best and there's religion at its worst. It's like at its best, it's spirit-filled. So each action, each performance is engaged with the initiate or the person deeply in their mind, engaged with that performance, that ritual, whatever it is that's become. And that you could kind of almost consider that it's like almost like that good thing that came to earth gets crystallized over time. And so the crystallization, you could say, is those performances, those rituals, those shrines. If you go to a Catholic cathedral, if you go to, it's like people will put their blood, sweat, and tears into creating things and into creating rituals which point the initiate to his kingdom, which his kingdom, like you've talked about, is actually a spiritual space. So the idea is not to just go through the ritual. At its worst, religion is just the outer form. It's like I go every week, like we're talking about the Lord's Supper, I partake of the Lord's Supper, or I think Catholics do communion once a year. I've been to evangelical churches where they participate, once a month or so. And so you go and you partake of this emblem, and you can do that completely devoid of any of the spirit of the kingdom, of the spirit of the thing that initiated that whole framework. You can live it, and of course people within the frameworks understand this because they know that there's stinkers among them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them are the stinkers. It's like they're the people who are like out robbing their brother all week long.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like they're running that used car lot, and it's like there's a real disconnect between their personal lives and this outward religious observance. And they're not really interested in the kingdom. They're not really interested in that spirit which enlivens and transforms the individual. And so that's that hypocrisy is what has made people all over the world shy away from religion for millennia.
Right.
And get a bitter taste in their mouth.
Yeah, and yet they participate themselves in approximations of religion. You can see it like down in Cuba, where they would force their people to come out to the parade to celebrate brotherhood and communism. And you did not have a choice. You're going out there, carry your flag, because if you don't, you're going to get arrested. And so for some people, it was a joke. They couldn't let on what a joke this is. Because in that time when Castro was trying to get on board, so there's like state religion. And so in any group, you have approximations of what you see like in churches. So religion can be easy to see that disconnect, but honestly, there's people who go to school or they go to their work. There's a math teacher right now teaching math, and they know that the kids really don't. All these kids I'm teaching, they don't need to know the Pythagorean theorem. That's not necessary. Their mom and dad don't know the Pythagorean theorem. They do know that they need to know fourth grade math. That's useful. So counting money. And so they'll just draw near with their lips to this is important, because you kind of have to. You got a bunch of prisoners there. They're
Yep.
trying to get a grade and they're trying to go through these hoops. And you're part of this big system. And that's how I understand it. So I don't have to look at religion. I can look at public education and what I went through. And you're just
Yeah.
you're a participant. You're going through the motions. And it's called muddling through. You're just muddling through. Oh, I got a B. What was your score? It's like, how much did you love it though? That's not a score. Although it's the main score that God has. How much do you love me? With all your heart, mind, and strength. And you're rarely actually asked that. That's a very direct question. And Jesus has brought it to my attention. In religion, we don't ask, how much do you love God? A scale of 1 to 100 or something like that. Okay, so I just wanted to acknowledge that I see your poem contrasting immediately your poem that you wrote with Jesus, contrasting performances, and then you have imagination, but you're acknowledging performances because ultimately that's what we have as humans, okay? If you're going to put a school together where you collect people together, there's going to have to do some stuff that you have varying levels of buy-in. And some people can come along and maybe they'll start geeking out on the Pythagorean theorem. But then you still have the underlying question, why are we making everybody go through this? It's not necessary. Don't ask that question. And that's what they would do in Cuba. Don't you ask those questions. Everybody should be happy. We're all brothers in this. We're all in this together, and raise up the flag. And so it is.
Well, and I appreciate that because it spans the gap of, we've talked about lately how it's not just a religious movement, whatever's happening right now. It's like it touches all areas of our life. You talked about the state, and at its worst, every ideology, whether it's a more religious one, whether it's a scientific one, whether it's the state or whatever, it's like it can become empty.
Yes. Wear
And
the mask. Just wear the mask.
yes,
Show that you
perfect.
care. Wear the mask. Well, this doesn't make sense. I'm eating food and I wear it till I sit down, and it's just not making sense to me.
Just wear the mask.
Just wear the mask, okay? You show that you care by wearing the mask. And
most people, it's funny to go to a store nowadays, and this will get us rabbit trailed, so I'll bring it back in a second. But it's kind of evident that most people don't believe it because, if they have a chance not to wear it, they don't.
That's right.
And so it's like nobody believes. So there's no spiritual connection. Does that make sense?
That's right. Yeah.
With the performance. It's like they're not like, but then there's the few diehards that are like, no, this is true. And why won't everybody realize it's true? But to go back, I don't want to rabbit trail too much, forgive me. But to go back to the poem, make one more comment about those first few lines and then maybe we'll move on. But that's the starting place, is to realize it's like, so this is much of what religion has to offer, is that it provides for us a place in the week. Like you talked about, how it's like Groundhog Day and it all repeats. And it's like, people will engage in these performances, and why did they go back and they do the same things over and over again? Well, because they're trying to, I'm going to walk through these steps. I'm going to make this pilgrimage in my week once per week so that I can recenter my mind upon this thing. And then, like you and I have talked about, it kind of gets to the point where it's like, especially when you're desperate, it's just not quite enough. You need more. And that's what the poem goes into. I'm going to read on just a little bit.
And I just want to, that first line, religion contains certain performances. And I like that emphasis on certain, because as humans, our life is all a buzz. And it's nice to have certain things. So I know you can use that term certain to mean like particular ones, but it also means a firm foundation. Like I can count on this. When I go to church, I can count on white shirts and ties. Well, that's not the thing that you really want to count on. I don't think that's the big thing, but I can count on maybe connecting with God, having some quiet time, and certain things I can count on. The sacrament's going to be passed. And so that certainty has a function, and it's a function of what humans need. I need certain things: food, clothing, shelter. Oh, can we just skip food? Yeah, but not for very long. There's certain things I need, and then there's related performances. Well, then you have to go to the store, and if you're going to go to the store, you have to go to work. And so our lives are enmeshed in certain performances, for good or for ill. I don't want to go to work, you know?
So, something to throw out there with that, like with, like you talked about certain performances, I really love the way you described it, because it's like you talked about something that you can count on. And, the reason why, and this is what's beautiful about, and this is what I think should be revered and given love about the various manifestations of religion in the world, is that how many times you talk about the person who's coming and just doing it empty, empty, empty. There's nothing in it for them. They just come, they come. But how many people have described, like, people who found it, who were basically lip service Christians or lip service Mormons or lip service Muslims, I don't know what, but they went to church every week with their parents, or they went every week with their wife because that's what their wife wanted or something. And then that one week, something happened. Somebody, they can always count on some guy in a suit and tie getting up and giving a talk, or they can count on the pastor saying something. And then that one week, he said something that touched their soul.
Yeah.
And it was the beginning of a massive change in their life, because they made themselves go through the performance. And then I wanted to say one more thing too, and this is, people a lot of times will, they love their own performances, but they have to deny everybody else the idea that they could have something good in theirs.
Right.
So, for example, like I say I have a certain framework and I go to church in a certain place every week, but those damn Catholics or those damn evangelicals or those whoever, it's like,
yeah.
They've got it wrong. I shouldn't use damn, I apologize, but like, those people over there, and they'll deny that anything over there could initiate that spiritual experience.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's like, wait a second, it's like, that doesn't quite add up. So it's like the person who's after the spiritual thing, they will have a certain respect and awe of other people's frameworks, because I remember this, I watched this program years ago, and this fellow talked about, he said, whenever I look at another religion, he said, I do a couple of things. He says, the first thing I do is that I look at their religion, and he said, I compare our best to their best.
Right.
In other words, I don't compare our stand-up citizens to their stinkers.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And the second thing he said is, I leave room for a holy envy. And what he meant was like I look over the fence and I go, wow. Like, he actually mentioned the Mormons, which was interesting. He says, I love the fact that they have a temple, because I have always been in awe of the temple when I read in the, and they have one. And it's something that it's like I'm kind of like, I have a holy respect for that. Maybe I don't totally agree with what they do there, and I don't even know what they do there, but But at the same time, how beautiful it would be to have a sacred, holy place that's only for. So I wanted to say that before we moved on.
Oh, that's good.
Should I
That's
read
good.
some
Yep.
more, or should I go, or do you want to say
No,
something else?
nope, that's good. I think yep,
Okay.
that's good.
So it is so for example, the Lord's Supper, it is intended to cause the initiate to imagine that they are actually partaking of Christ himself, ingesting him, and thus becoming him by continued partaking and remembrance. And I'm gonna read the next part too, and we can talk about this. If this is done intentionally, it is an exercise of the mind. It is a purposeful imagination, and purposeful imagination has the power to transform. Do you want to take that and make a comment
Yeah. I'd
first?
like to talk about. I love that phrase, purposeful imagination, because Jesus, when I got born again in 2015, that's how he helped me get closer to him. Is he said, you're going to have to use your imagination, and that word within religious circles sounds like magic. Oh, I love Jesus because he does magic. Let's call those miracles, shall we? And because magic starts getting close to Harry Potter land and witches and all kinds of dark stuff. And I understand that words matter, but that's exactly why Jesus used that phrase. Greg, you're going to have to use your imagination. And he's been emphasizing that recently by pointing out the elephant in the room. Invisible God. Okay, anybody? It's the elephant in the room, because that's a huge ask. You're asking me to believe in an entity that I can't see. Okay, to love him with all my might, mind, and strength. I can't even see him. All right. And that makes it hard. That makes it hard to believe in you, Jesus. And he's put in my heart to be kind of transparent, like a Jesus street preacher. I say things that are not appropriate for a regular church, and not yet. I mean, he's going to change the churches where it will be more appropriate, but I have a spicy testimony. And that's one of the things, like, okay, I'm going to say it like it is, Jesus. You're hard to believe in, and I got a lot of unbelief in you, but you're helping my unbelief. But one reason you're hard to believe in, I can't touch you like a mortal would. All right. And so what I have to do is use my imagination. So then there it is, sitting out there like magic. And he helped me create these bridges. Okay, Greg, the sacred imagination. So somebody else had coined that phrase. I'm like, oh yeah, well, that's what it is. So that feels more comfortable. A sacred imagination. And then he did one step further that gets scriptural. People are like, oh, good. Now that's a little more certain. It's called the eye of faith. So that there's a layer by layer, line upon line. He can take this thing that seems pretty far out there, because he had me, and he has me still, refer to him, Jesus, my imaginary friend. Well, my imaginary friend who is real, who is my therapist, who is Jesus. That's a recent addition as my therapist, because he's been emphasizing, Greg, you need therapy. I can't afford good therapy. You're going to get the best therapy that you could ever get. So he's my therapist, and because he brings me peace. That's why that's so important. And so I imagine I have this therapist who's working with me, and he can do unusual, actually it would be illegal. The things he does to me would be illegal. He would lose his license if he was immortal. And I was told anybody, here's what he does to me. He killed your mom? Yeah, when I was like 9 years old, he took her out. And then he killed my little brother. Whoa, that's got to be pretty big on your mind. I know, but it's kind of how I view the death differently. I've had enough people die that I'm like, hey, you know what? So that's therapy. It can be leave you with post-traumatic distress syndrome or whatever, perhaps, but he can take care of that. So back to imagination, sacred imagination, closer, and then eye of faith. Like eye of faith, that almost sounds Eastern, like that third eye, right? What is that, eye of faith? Well, you know what we call that in religion? Faith. Another word for it, belief. Oh, now I'm comfortable. So now I can go all the way from imagination, but imagination is what I personally needed. I'm like, so you want me, Jesus, and this sounds like a little kid. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm with Jesus. And I feel like I'm a little kid who's got Puff the Magic Dragon. I have a dragon. It could be a dragon. It could be an elephant or whatever. And the parents can, oh, that's so cute. He thinks he's with an elephant or whatever. It could be a human creature, but the little kid's imagining their life spent with this person and making a place for him. Can you put a plate here for my, and so sometimes the parents will humor that. Well, that's what I find, Jonathan, is that people are humoring me with my imagination of Jesus. Yeah, Jesus told me this, Jesus told me that. And I realize they're humoring me. So it's like, that's very kind of them. They don't believe that Jesus is creating Jesus TV. And it's okay, they don't have to. It's just my imagination. It's where I live. And what did you imagine before? Not that I was on Jesus TV. Oh, well, I can see why you'd want to. That's so cool. You're on Jesus TV. Well, you got quite the imagination, don't you, Greg? I'm like, and here's the thing. The more I imagine, or let's go over here to believe, this thing happens that Jesus talks about in the scriptures. If you believe, the placebo works. Oh, yeah. I'm getting better. Well, of course you are, because you believe. Then they go do studies of placebos. And here's the thing. They've done studies where they hand people and they say, this is a sugar pill. This does nothing for headaches. And the person takes it and it still shows up as working. And they're like, whoa, how could this be possible? We just told this person they're taking a placebo. This is not the one that has the drug in it. And they say that there's some unconscious thing inside the person that's just the ingestion. So we're talking today about purposeful imagination and putting stuff inside of us. So going through, even through perfunctory, just going through the motions, apparently that we have a sentient being. I'm using that sentient being right now inside me. We just call it Greg, the one that's talking. But Carl Jung says, he called it the shadow, that I have somebody else kind of in here as well. It's in my shadow. He's the one that makes up those crazy dreams. And when I'm sleeping, that guy, he's smart. Boy, he can do all kinds of weird stuff in instant. And like, whoa, that guy's got power. Well, that guy's bossing me around all day. It's called the shadow. And so I have to deal with this ego, and it connects with spirits, good spirits and bad. And it's very smart. So it can, and people like Elon Musk have learned how to grab hold of that shadow and do some phenomenal things. And how that's connected to religion, we don't fully understand, but we have, all of us have a part of us that's way more creative, way more smart than the person that we can present to other people. And so that is where you start getting into this realm of imagination, is when you start going to imagination, you start accessing things that are harder to give voice to. So like your poetry allows you to start engaging and kind of guessing, like what are those voices saying? The Spirit giveth utterance to the groanings within us is a scriptural thing. Well, those groanings by Carl Jung probably would have been called the shadow. Oh, you're speaking of the groanings within you? I didn't even know I was groaning. Right. You've got somebody in you that's praying, say, God, please help me. You're like, well, I'm not doing that. Right. But you have a spirit inside you. So part of that shadow has to be the spirit that probably remembers more or is connected more with God. And it's doing things kind of independent, because it does that. It'll boss people around. You get angry and that thing will take over, and all of a sudden, oh, I didn't mean to do that. You have to go back and apologize. Sorry, I wasn't being myself. Yeah, you were. You were being a self you don't have control of. And so they call that the elephant in the rider. Jonathan Haidt, who Jesus gave the understanding to, is that we like to imagine we're in control. So using imagination, I'm in control, because you're riding, and it's like riding on an elephant. And as long as that elephant does what you tell it to do, it feels like you're in control. But the moment that elephant, the one that's under you, decides to go somewhere else, I shouldn't be in this place. Yeah, but you are. Why would I ever go into a place like this, a sports bar? Those ladies don't have any clothes on. what am I doing? I'm a married man. And guess what? The rider doesn't have control because he didn't pay attention to the reins. He wasn't, he said, you know what? I'm not going to church. I'm tired of that every time. So I'm going to use my Sundays however I want. And there you are. You find yourself in a place you never thought you would, but you have a creative imagination. And so the devil can hijack that imagination. I'll wrap this up. And God can use that imagination. So we have some level of, and it's what you said, is about where our attention goes. So if you keep paying attention to sports bars, I wonder what goes on in sports bars. Well, keep imagining, because the next thing you'll know, your elephant's going to go find out. You're like, no, I don't want to go there. It doesn't matter.
Wow,
Yeah, go ahead.
that's powerful. What you just said, it really strikes me, because like if you imagine it, sooner or later, you're going to bring it into being. So, you know, like the self-help people, the people who talk about imagining and creating, you're hitting the nail on the head. That's the way everything comes into being, is through imagination. So you think, like, you know, yeah, like you said, like, I wonder what happens in sports bars. And it's like, actually, I don't know if it's sports bars.
No,
It's
I was using a colloquial term. Yeah, we could
yeah,
call it strip bars.
strip bars.
Although
Yeah,
I'm sure you could find something that has
yeah,
both.
yes, yes.
I imagine it, but not very often. Let me tell you that.
Well, and so I want to hit on a couple of points that you mentioned, and then maybe we can read some more lines. So one thing that occurred to me was vain imagination. The scriptures often talk about vain imagination. Well, if there's vain imagination, there must be unvain imagination. And so we have vain imaginings. In other words, it's like, you know, I love, a friend of mine talked about how, well, a friend of mine, a guy that I was part of a program that I paid to be a part of and to watch. He talked about how oh he talked about how the self-help books are written. He says it's like a game of Frogger. Do you remember the old program? It was like during the age of Pong, and there were frogs and you had to try and get them across the road.
Yeah,
I never played
yeah,
it.
that's right. Yeah, you would hop on things that were moving. Yep, lily pads. That's right.
Yeah, and the idea was to not get squashed on your way across the road. And he said, I love what he said was, you know, the self-help books are written by those who got to the other side, not by the squashed ones. You know,
Right, that's right.
and it's like, see, so for them, they imagined, you know, well, I can have this beautiful life, but guess what? It was a vain imagination because it didn't lead. And so we can put our faith in things which will not get us where we want to go. And like, there's a reason why everybody wants, for example, to have, you know, financial security, like just to know that they've got things squared away and stuff. And so that everybody's, you can say, well, I'm being all religious and I'm not trying to imagine these things. But the truth is that all of us in every aspect, whether it's financial, whether it's political, economic, you can tell I think about economics quite a bit, religious, it's like we want to know that we're not, our faith is not vain. And so so that led me to the other thing I wanted to just mention. So it is this creative force. The imagination is a creative force, and it leads us places like you talked about, and it can be inspired by something that's heavenly or something which is shades of gray, and then it can be inspired by the blackest unseen forces. And whether you know, like there's some people who may watch this that's like, oh, I don't believe in spirits. So, well, picture what it is. It's like, what's mob, you know, what's the mob, you know, they say that the mob mentality will take over a mob. It's like, well, there's unseen forces. We may not completely know what they are, but the point is we want to be inspired by a most heavenly force. And so I think one of the reasons that you talked about how like it's very mysterious for religious people, and they don't like when we start saying it's magical, or we start saying it's, you know, it's like, and they're willing to, like, oftentimes I found that people who are they're very into the outward religion, like they they don't really like talking, like they're okay with the miracles in the past. They do not like to talk about miracles in the present time.
Right.
It is freaky to them.
Yeah.
And they like the outward. They like to go and they like to go to church and do what they're told and pay their tithe or do whatever, but don't let me, don't talk to me about, that you had some sort of spiritual experience with God that led you to do something,
Yeah.
because that's scary.
Raise your hand in Sunday school, like I've done. Yes, I would like to prophesy, and I let that linger in the air. I would like to prophesy, but it's probably not appropriate to do that. So what I'll do is I'll just offer my best guess, like the rest of you guys are doing. But I'm joking. I'm actually enacting that to remind myself of that which you're speaking of. So we talk of Christ, we preach of Christ, we prophesy of Christ. Well, maybe privately, but then we write according to our prophecies, and then we put them on Jesus TV. You've gone too far. Keep those to yourself. But Jesus keeps telling me, you are entering an era where people will start, deep Christians, he will pour down his spirit and they won't be able to help themselves. They're going to say, I dreamed a dream. I had a vision. And you're like, where
It's
are we?
happening.
And in fact, this morning he told me that's one way he's going to separate the wheat and the tares, that he would pour down his spirit and they will not be stopped. It will open up. And that's disconcerting. So the very disconcertment you just talked about will separate the wheat and tares, because these other people are not comfortable. It feels unsafe. The people who have a lot of Jesus in them, they feel safe because they know they don't have to follow the frickin' sheep. I don't care if you had a vision. I don't care if you had a prophecy. If you wrote it, hallelujah. All I'm going to do is listen to it, just like your scientific finding. If you say the mask, I'm paying attention to that. But that's not going to work for me. I'm sorry, I won't do that. Well, Jesus told me. He told you, so you better do that. But he's not telling me. So I will wait. Maybe I'm going to do exactly what you're doing later. And so then they'll have a firmer understanding of that, because that's what Jesus is giving me, is that you're not blown by every wind and doctrine. But the wind is coming to certain people. They say, move. I haven't been told to sell my house. Well, then don't sell your house. Okay. The rich young man wasn't for everybody. It's like, no, go sell all you have. And if somebody heard, oh, I'm supposed to go sell all I have. No, that rich young man, he's been checking them off. Jesus probably tell me, no, you go check off some more stuff. I'm doing this. What about these? Okay. When are you going to tell me to sell all my stuff? Well, you got a long ways to go. That rich young man was really good. Yeah, but he didn't sell all his stuff. And so I think Jesus started that with me. Sell all your stuff. Now start doing the checklist. So maybe that's where I'm at. Anyhow.
Well, that's fascinating. That's fascinating, because it what I'm seeing is that there are certain things that are happening all over, and what you just described is one of them: the paring down, the selling, and preparing to be upon a journey. Yeah, man, we're going to save that for another one.
That's right.
Because the wilderness and the path of the wilderness, oh my gosh, that's another thing. I wanted to mention, so a couple things, and then I probably should read some more, but yeah, what's happening right now is that I see it, it's pouring down. I'm finding more and more people who they just can't help themselves. It's like, and it has all the right rings of it. It's like, and they're not, and it's not the correct channels. And so what's going to happen is that there are going to be those who they will hear it and they're like, oh my gosh, this person who's of the wrong group
that's right,
just said something, and the Spirit of Almighty God just bore witness to me that it was true. And they're going to believe, even though it came from the wrong place. Or what's going to happen is that there will be people who they'll see that will scare them. And then they will cling more fervently to that dead outward performance that has no life in it in and of itself.
And that's, I like that you said that, because my friend Lyman told me about that, a way to understand that he brings the sword. that the very word of God will condemn you. And that's one way it condemns you, is you cling to it. Because if you're clinging only to the word and not to
Yes.
the underlying lively thing, because like I'm
Yep.
married, so a marriage certificate is nothing. Hold it, Greg. It's not nothing. God told us to be married. If we're going to have sex and so forth, we need to be married. Right. But if you don't love that person, God
Right.
could care less about. He just, I'm so sick of your offerings. He says, I can't remember what scripture that is, but it's like, I want to spew those things out. You're like, what? I'm doing your holy sacraments. I hate your sacraments. And like, whoa, Jesus, who talks like this? A God that's tired of people who are just doing the performances without the imagination, without the lively, heart-filled, deep. They're totally excited about money and things. There are things that they're always excited about. Woo, I just can't wait to get myself some of that food. Do that with me, people. Barbecue, make me the barbecue. So that's what he would do. My friend said, when they would offer these offerings, he said, I think it was like a barbecue, because they would feed these people. And because God's like, you know what people really like? Food. How about you associate food with me? And of course, then your poem that you wrote with Jesus has that element. Yeah.
Well, and the idea of the imagination is that it's like, if I have just a little bit of that lively thing you're describing, the thing that fills the outward form, I can obtain more of it by imagination. It's like that's what we're going to get into in the next parts of the poem. And so one last thing that I wanted to say before we hit the next few lines is that the key element with much of this is humility, because first of all, most people aren't really willing to go down this road we're talking about unless they are they're broken to doing it like something. It's their framework has kind of failed them in some way.
Yeah.
Whether that's the state, whether that's the program that says, or the system.
Just one moment. Yes.
Yep.
No, come right now. That's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, do you put much stuff in the barn? Park stuff much in the barn?
No.
Is it do you do the little trailer and the four-wheeler?
The four-wheelers getting fixed, and no, I just put that in the hay shed.
Oh, in the hay shed.
Yeah.
Okay. Sean has a piece of exercise equipment.
Oh, okay.
He was wondering if that might be a possibility if you set it up in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's basically it sounds like a chin up.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The barn. Yeah. Yeah. He can feel free to do that. Yes. Set it up in there. That's a good place.
And then if you want to use it, equipment,
that'd be good.
that would be fine.
If I could ever do a pull up, that'd be awesome. I'd have to put a sheet under there.
Chin up.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Take care, Wendy. All right. Back with you, Jonathan.
So the last thing I just wanted to say with that is it's like, so the reason that many people don't go down this road is because it scares them. And what I wanted to say with it is it's like, so once you decide that you're going to get more of this heavenly influence, and especially if it's like you decide to allow it to guide you on a journey. Okay, I'm going to allow this thing to guide me because I'm screwed up. Something's wrong with my framework. I'm getting it all wrong, and I'm screwing up the people around me. And I'm going to let him take me on a journey. So, like, once you decide you're going to do that, it's scary. And the one thing is that as you're listening, you're going to get it wrong. Remember how we talked about, like, there's the purest white, the Holy Spirit, and then there's all these shades of gray down to the blackest. It's like there are certain voices you hear in your mind which are not Jesus. So guess what's going to happen along the way? You're going to hear a voice and you're going to realize and so as you're moving along, the person who's trying to draw closer is all the time like, dear God, I know that surely I must be getting this wrong sometime. Will you show me
Yeah.
I'm wrong? And then piece by piece, as he moves along, he realizes, you know what? I thought that was God, but you know what? Now God's showing me there's something better than what, and it's like, and it gets brighter and bright. It's like, so the scriptures talk about approaching God,
Right.
approaching. So you can't go from being all safe within your structured,
Yeah.
empty performances. You can't go from there to being all bright, perfectly, like you do it all right, and you
Yeah.
always hear the right voice. You can't in one step
Yeah.
go. So you
Well said.
humbly,
Yeah. That's right.
humbly make your way along.
Yeah,
So
and I've had to become comfortable with that as well. Just and Jesus has had to make me comfortable with that. He says, "Do your broken best." Like, oh, okay, now
yes,
when you say it that way, so I'm doing offerings, and so like I'm little kid, like, here you go, Jesus, and it's lame-o. It's so lame-o. I know it because I have I have an adult mind, but I also have a child's mind. Like, okay, well, this is what I'm hearing you want, Jesus, and he's happy. Like, yeah, you tried. That's cute. Okay, try again. Try again. And it's like, what? No, I thought I did it perfect. No, that's not how. Like you said, it's humility. It's like Jesus TV. My friend goes, "Whoa, it's getting better," and I knew that. Go all the way back. No, I don't have time for that. Right? Most people didn't have time for it, but the guy that watched this, maybe he did, but I've seen the incremental the whole way. Then nothing changed for me because I already knew it was sucky. It's sucky now in a Babylon way, judged by formal eyes. I don't ever think that what I can do on Jesus TV will ever be the pristine thing. I mean, you look at the billions of dollars that's spent on making that slick. That ain't going to happen by me if Jesus wants it to, but I'm an old man. So it's like, I don't even want to see your face is what people would say. Like, no, we've got more handsome man and we've got makeup. AI's coming. So there is a chance for you, Greg. Yeah, but you manipulated me. I look like a 30-year-old. You've changed my voice. You've done all these different enhancements. And so, oh, I guess I was wrong. Jesus, you showed me that I can be slick, but that's not what he's called me to. So I do my broken best, and I'm aware of it. But he loves me just like I am, and that's what I celebrate. And but I like what you're saying. That's let's move that aside.
yeah,
That journey, that's scary, and it's something you have to get used to. And we've all done that, like riding a bike. First time on the bike, you're gonna fall, but I don't want to. I want to go to be just like you, Daddy. I don't want to fall, because falling, you can actually hurt yourself bad. And anyone who's learned how to ride the bike, it's a scary endeavor. Yet what happens? Most people learn how to ride the bike if you do it.
yeah, and I think I have this knowing. I'll say this and then I'll read. I have this knowing. People are going to look at stuff I've read, and they're going to say to me, like, or that I've written. Sorry, they'll look at things I've written, and they'll say, I think you were wrong. Like, I think you were mistaken, at least partially, in this thing you wrote back, in 2018 or something, and I'll look at it and I'll read it and I'll go, I think you're right. I think I was off. I think what I think about that now is this. It's kind of it's developed some, and I love Emerson said that. I remember him saying, like, all these people expect me to keep like saying the same thing, and he says, I will not be held by something I said yesterday because I'm growing.
Yes.
So let me
Yeah.
more.
No, that's good, and that's the society we live in. If we go to God's society, get used to different, meaning for the rest of eternity. Damnation is where you go, finally we have arrived. But God's like, no, I'm going to tear it up. So look at all his creations. Did you see any of his creations that are just like stopped? They're not going anywhere. No, it's all in motion. Like, oh, can't we just stop here and just, for a moment, okay, enjoy this day, but this one's going to be gone. you're going to be a new person tomorrow. I don't want to. I'm going to do everything I can to just hold it together. What if there's
Yeah.
something better? And so that carnal security is so because maybe you had a good day. I just want to do that again. But everything runs out, and it becomes anyhow, that's it.
Well, you're saying too good of things, because you make, like, I can't help not comment, because I know we need to move on, but the spirit is moving. Okay.
Yes,
It is moving. And it's like I love this. I'll just say that, it's like, and that's why it's like, well, oh goodness, look, we found the truth, and we created these performances that help us remind us of it. And maybe even God told us, like, he inspired these, and then we cling to them, and it's like, but the spirit is moving. And so it's like, and as it moves out and we're clinging to the, so it's
that's why I can't talk in church, because God's moving and I'm like, hold it. I would like to revise my testimony, and my testimony would be like, I've never said this before, but I'm going to say it now. I mean, this is the testimony. I'd say, Jesus is hard to believe in. Oh my goodness, is he hard to believe in? I've got this big bag of unbelief. I mean, I unbelieve Jesus. I'd like to tell you how much I unbelieve him. All right. But I also want to tell you, I fully believe in it. I believe in him more than most anything. I got this bag of unbelief. I unbelieve a lot of the things we're doing in America, things that are normal. I am so unbelieving them. And I don't want God to help me believe in them, because I like what he's having me believe in. And I'd say he's invisible. I would, my testimony now, I'd be mentioning that all the time. Jesus is invisible, which makes him hard to believe. And then my testimony would be built from there. Well, then how do you get yourself to believe in him, Greg? I do this thing that Jonathan coined with Jesus's help, purposeful imagination. So I like that. I didn't get my full comment in there. I'm going to, on purpose, that's why I like it. On purpose, I'm going to believe that Jesus is here. Oh, you're doing that on purpose. I know, right. It sounds so bold. It sounds blunt. Like, I'm going to believe in you, Jesus. Even if I can't see you, I'm going to believe you're here. You said it right here. I got your word. It says 2 or more gathered in my name. Oh, there's me and Jonathan. And if Jonathan wasn't here, I'd say, well, you say that angels are here. I got 2 and I'm going with it. Jesus is in the house. And then I'm going to run my life today as though you are here. But which requires me to give up all my other assumptions. Well, what if he's not? And then Jesus said, you're not a doctrinaire. So I don't let doctrine come in and push me around. Like, Jesus says, I'm your friend, Greg. You don't have to be the doctrine guy. That's not your calling. And I think, hallelujah, because that stuff, I'm a thinker. That could come and push my imagination out. Like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And like some lawyer. I'm done with that, okay? I'm in play mode and I'm playing with Jesus. And that, that's where I wanted to go with that thought. With regards to the movement, yes, that my understanding of God has moved, and it shook me, but it would shake others likewise, because, whoa, I've moved on from the Jesus that I understood previously. And then maybe that is why you shouldn't talk at church, like, yeah.
Well, yeah. So I think it's okay that we may just read through the rest of the poem quickly in a minute, because we're talking about the very things that it talks about. But like, there's a scripture somewhere, I'm not good at always remembering where, but it says, if you will approach me, what does he say? I will approach you.
Seek me, I will seek you. Yes.
Seek me and I will seek you. And so it's like seek me and you will find me. And so like what you're talking about is so important. And it's like, and people get this, like, if you want something to change in your life, like if you're tired of, like, say it's relationships, like say, like, that there's somebody out there and they're trying to find a spouse, and it's like, and they're screwing it up every darn time, and it's like, and they can't figure it out. It's like, it's like, well, then maybe they begin to imagine it going better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as they imagine it going better, and they try to draw close to what it would be like to be the kind of person who could, and they imagine it every day. Well, what would that look like? What would that look like? And they imagine, and what is the kind of best person? Then what they'll find is ideas
Yeah.
come to their mind, like, well, you're always trying to find a girl who's like this, and you don't even like people like that. Why do you do that? So like, you draw near to the thing that's better than where you're at.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the thing that's better will draw closer to you. It's like, if I can't get my finances right, and every time I turn around, it's like, I'm in the gutter, and it's like, maybe I have a business, and every business deal goes south, and I don't know why. So I imagine a holier me and a holier God intervening,
Yes.
and I imagine better ideas, and all of a sudden, as I do, better ideas come. Maybe I find myself more calm the next time I meet with somebody to ask them if they want me to build their barn, because I build barns, and I meet with them, and all of a sudden I'm a little bit calmer because I've been imagining it going better. And so, it's like, and you talk about, so I'm going to read some more of the poem now, because this goes right into that. Is that
Good.
okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, I'm going to read the last line I read. And purposeful imagination has the power to transform. That's the thing we were just talking about. That it's like, if you can imagine something better, then it's possible that that very imagination can make it better. It will draw close to you. So the biggest struggle with such observances is that they happen but once per week or month, or worse, only once per year or once per lifetime. So I'm just going to read the rest of it, and then we can make comments. So, better to weave such purposeful imagination into the fabric of every day. Let every morsel be the blood and body. Let every step be a renewal of our faith. And thus, perhaps, through constant remembrance, be transformed by constant purposeful imaginations into the very thing he desires us to be. As I read through this first part, so the biggest struggle is with such performances that they happen but once per week or month, or worse, once per year. And yet I wanted to say there that it's like, as we look at our various religions, and you can say our frameworks of belief, because there's frameworks of belief that are not religious. They really are not intended to invade our lives every day. I mean, how would it be if I had to go to church every day?
Right.
I don't want to go to church every day.
Right.
It's like some people don't want to go to church every week.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, they maybe they love the sacred. They enjoy going, but it's like, at a certain point too, it can become mundane. It can become empty by too often repeating.
Right.
Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yeah. If
And so,
Christmas every day, it's never Christmas. Yeah.
yes, perfect. If it's Christmas every day, it's never Christmas, and for somebody who maybe observes the Jewish feast, it's like, if it's Passover every day, then it wouldn't be Passover. And so it's like, God gives us his gifts, these performances. And but what we can do is that we can look at our lives and prayerfully, meditatively begin to ask ourselves, well, like, for example, like I tend to be more, I don't know what they call it, but like, you pick up on the spirits of other people or the energies. And so like, I have to admit, I don't really like, there's certain places I don't like too much, like Walmart. Like it's a spiritual battle. Like by the time I leave, I'm, it's like, because I pick up on people's stuff, and it's like, So for me, it's like, and this is where I think it becomes beautiful. And I think it strikes on what you're getting at with your whole work and what you're doing. And I listened to you long enough that I started actually doing it. And I was like, okay, so I thought about it. And this is what we need. This is the age that we live in, is like, we need a personalized religion.
Yes.
That is the religion of Greg, the religion of Jonathan. And it can be in addition to what we do on Sundays or whatever. But like, I was like, okay, I need a way, I was realizing, to face Walmart. So like, I remember I went a while back and it was like, what am I going to do? Well, when I go into Walmart, what do I struggle with? Well, what I end up struggling with is that I'll have doubts plague me. Like, God's told me certain things, like, if you move ahead in this path, like, I'll resolve these problems in your life. And like, sometimes it's difficult for me to believe that when everything around me is just the problems, And so when I get hit in Walmart, what am I going to get hit with? Well, all those doubts, it's like, it's all those energies start hitting me. And of course, they know my button, man. They know what to say. Like, Jonathan, you really, in reality, it's all been a lie. Really, you're just a lost, lousy, what if it all, and what if all the doubts and things. So I said, okay, every step as I go into Walmart is a renewal of my faith. I wrote this poem around this time that I did this.
Oh, yeah.
So like, as I'm walking through Walmart, step, 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 I'm actually imagining that I'm renewing my faith with every step. And you know what? It worked. Like, as I'm walking through Walmart, like, every step, and then as I'm scanning the things, as I'm checking out, I'm imagining every scan, life, that's like God hearing the prayer of my heart, the desires I have to be the man that I've always wanted to be, the things that I've been, all the stuff I've been trying to work out of my own soul. Like,
Right.
he's hearing that with every scan, he's registering it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people would say, oh, that's stupid because that's not really true. But it's the placebo. It's what we were just talking about. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like the people who say, oh, that was a sugar pill. Well, it worked. Can you give me a bottle, like a bottle of 300, please?
That's right.
And they say, but it was just sugar. I don't care. It worked.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets results. And that's, you mentioned Walmart. Walmart is the center of a historical anomaly. So we live at a time of a historical anomaly. It's kind of Jesus's way. Like, he likes a climax for history. He's gone through a lot of history. So here we are at the top of history. So Walmart, Amazon, these big, huge corporations, and not just anywhere, but like at the top end of the society, his promised land, US, Antichrist, Babylon, all is well in Zion. So when you go to the mall or you go to Walmart, Costco, you're actually going to the pinnacle. It's like going to Harvard. Woo, what do they do here at Harvard, right? In history. And so it has a certain energy, commerce energy. And it's not like they don't plan this.
They don't vibe well. Go ahead.
They have psychologists. They employ all these people. So the temperature in the store is controlled. The music is controlled. Control. So it represents, like, if you go to a formal church like I do, it's like the epitome. Is it like, what if money was almost no object? You just simply did the best you could. All the formal operations, you were building like an inn that was going to be right next to where Jesus was born. This would be the coolest inn. And then we didn't have a front door that if somebody came knocking, a pregnant woman and a man named Joseph, hey, do you have any room? You wouldn't have any room at that inn because it's so cool. It's full. I'm sorry, at least for the stragglers that are coming. So you'd have to direct them to the end. But what Walmart is this epitome. It's like the top end. And it does have a spirit about it. So God called me into Walmart to go street preaching. That was one of the things that was kind of uncomfortable, like 5:30 in the evening. And I shouted out, "Attention, Walmart shoppers, Jesus is in the house and he's in your heart and he's in my heart. And this is what he wants me to sing." And then I started singing Amazing Grace out loud, and security later came. By the time I got done with Amazing Grace, here was security. "Can we help you?" I said, "Well, yeah, I've got 2 more songs to sing." "Well, you can't record them." And I thought that was cute. They're just saying you can't record them. But I couldn't promise them that. So Jesus set it up, because like they didn't tell me to get lost. They just said you can't record these. But I knew, like, no, Jesus says you have to. So I couldn't lie to him. And so I said, well, how about this? I'll sing my last song as I depart. So then I sang "What a Friend We Have in Jesus" as I was leaving. But this Walmart, see, this is my imagination. This Walmart is 777 Main Street in Ephraim, Utah. And I'm just like, because I hadn't noticed that, like 777, like the opposite of 666. So Jesus has never had me go that loud, but I'll do that. I'll do like flash worship mob, call it worshopping. And so I imagine, it's like, well, Greg imagined that Jesus has called him into Walmart. He imagines that he's a street preacher, and you could just keep going on. And he thinks he's on Jesus TV. It's as though he's building this world. He's taking the world and he's building something that no one can see. Like, oh, so Greg has some kind of mega church. I'd say, well, I don't have a mega church, but Jesus does. It's this big, huge building, and we use it for worshiping. So when I go in there, I now always think of it as a place of worship. And it is. It's a place where people go worship, meaning bringing attention. That's what worship is. Whatever you bring your attention to and keep your attention on, that's what you worship. And so people go to Walmart. They may not think they're worshiping, but they are. They're paying attention to food and clothing, but they're not doing it independently, because like I said, they're psychologists who want you to buy more stuff than you need. They want you to get more immodest stuff. They're trying to keep cultural trends going. They do want this, they don't want that. So there's been selection there. And so, yeah, that's interesting. We both kind of have a thing with Walmart there, and reimagining is what you did. So that's the thing, purposeful imagination. I brought my purposeful imagination in there. And it's what Jesus is going to have me do with everything that I run into down here on earth is going to be repurposed. So I have a mountain that Jesus renamed Jesus Mountain. Most people call it Horseshoe Mountain in Spring City, Utah. And there was a big hubbub when I announced that it was being renamed and that they were going to take public comment before this. And it went all the way to the governor's office. And the governor said, no, we're not going to rename it. But it's all just imagination, just like Greg imagining that Jesus told him, hey, we're going to rename that mountain. But I'd say what I just told you, that's all my beliefs are. They're beliefs. Joseph Smith, farm boy, saw God the Father, Jesus Christ, dug up some gold plates, translates the Book of Mormon. Give you another one, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I imagine those people were real and that they also received revelations. And like, well, that's true. Yeah. These are called beliefs. They're an imagination. Finally, purposeful imagination is what enlivens me. I'm like, oh, so we have to engage with these things like we did when we were little kids. And when mom and dad told us, it's okay. No, I've got you. Okay, well, here's a harder one. When an invisible being says, it's okay, Greg, I got you. I'm like, okay, I can cross the street now? Yes. Go ahead.
Well, 2 thoughts. It's 10:56. I got to leave in just a minute. I'll make a quick comment and then I'll leave the last word to you. But my quick comment is um, it's, and this is really a discussion for another time, so I'm just going to throw it out and we'll talk about it a different day. But it's really hard, like to explain what's coming, like, and what's happening. Um, but you talk about, that morning with Walmart, and it makes me think about, like, I think it was Ezekiel who had to go and lay down in the street and cook his food over poop and all of that. And of course a person can do that and just be crazy.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've learned is it's like it's almost like some of the things I've had to do that like that I knew that were, for some reason I knew I had to do them, and I've looked back and wondered, like and I've tried to remember, and it's, at the time it felt like I knew, I just, like, there was a time I was in a homeless shelter for 2 weeks, and I probably could have laid on someone's couch. There's a number of people who'd let me lay on their couch, but I felt like I needed to go to this homeless shelter, and that caused a real break with some people in my family. And it was, and I don't want to go into that, into the family part of it, but the point being is, like, it was difficult. And um it's hard for me to look at other people and see their path, because it's like, oh, that would be hard.
Yeah.
But I look back at my own and I realize, and what I think I want to say, and this is the last thing I wanted to say, is that it's like, for whatever reason, it's like, it seems like when in this, whatever God is doing with all of this, part of it is, it's like we feel called upon, not all the time, but like, you was just one morning you felt you needed to go do that. It's like, there are things that, like, it's almost like it's a break
Yeah.
with what society is doing. And
Yeah.
it's almost like you don't understand, for whatever reason, somehow I know I need to do this thing, which I know it's out of the ordinary. I know it's a little strange. And for goodness sakes, the guys at Walmart may call the police and I may be arrested, and I don't want to be arrested.
That's right.
I don't want to be arrested, God. I don't know why I feel like I gotta do this. But um, and the good news, if anybody is in this place, it's like, it's from my experience, the few people I've seen who've I've seen a few people online who've felt to share certain things that were important in their lives, and I felt the Spirit of God for them, from them. I felt the right spirit, but they too had been down paths that were kind of not harmful to other people, but out of the ordinary in such a way that you could look at them and it would give you a reason to deny that still small voice that said there was something there, because their path was out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I kind of feel like you've talked about this. That's the hidden thing. It's like God almost always gives a reason not to believe.
Yeah.
Joseph Smith, he's got a third grade education, and he's just a boy, and nobody has stuff like that these days.
Yes.
Ezekiel, he's eating stuff cooked over dung, and he's half naked in the street.
Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Cool. No, I like that. And I think that's part of it for sure. That he wants you to not believe that person. He wants you to have that ambiguity. It's like, just listen to the words. What is he singing? Amazing Grace. Wouldn't it be nice if Walmart played Amazing Grace instead of Greg having to do that? Well, yeah. And only certain people will be able to see past that. But what he was doing for me too is, I knew what he was doing. Not fully, but he was breaking me. Basically, And
Yeah.
some people say, Greg, I could sing that in the parking lot and it would break me. I could sing that out in a field and that would emotionally break me because it's so freaking weird. But you have to go here like, well, you don't know me.
It's tailor-made for Greg.
I have a different threshold. The people like my family members would go like, no, if you were Jesus, you needed to break Greg. You're going to have to make him do something that's way dramatic for him to go, oh, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable, because Greg can feel comfortable doing the weirdest stuff. And so, yeah, he put me and I'm like, oh, am I really going to do this? And, I was trained for it but like never had I done that. But Jesus says it's so mild compared to what's coming. So the street preaching, he goes, it's going to be biblical end of days. The stuff I'm going to have you do, you have to just leave it to me. But what I realized when you were talking is like, yeah, that everybody's going to have to do what I did, an approximation of it. But their approximation might be to go tell their wife or their husband, I need a divorce. You either go big on God or we're done. That thing is so hard to say, because they had parents that just went along, go along, and made their way to the grave. Instead, they just go, Jesus is telling me it's put up time. And that breaks them just as thoroughly. It's uncomfortable, socially awkward, because they're now going, I'm a divorcee. They are as exposed. They're running around without a fig leaf in their mind. I wouldn't be. I'm like, I don't care what you guys think. But for some people, having a broken marriage is just so humiliating. Imagining what people are thinking. They're imagining more of that than I did after I did the song. And I'm trained. I don't care what they think. I'm in my car. Yeah, it was for a moment there. It was a little bit intense. But people will go through their own approximation, and God will remove the fig leaf and let you feel yourself naked so that you turn to him. I'm your comfort. I will give you clothes. You don't have to go around naked, and he'll clothe you, and you can live with being a divorcee, and he will take you to a new place, because sometimes it's a new person, or it just moved that marriage into a place where he wanted it to be more holy. Yeah, you had a good marriage, but it wasn't a deep Jesus marriage. So then he'll take that marriage all the way to where he does, to the cliff, sometimes off of the cliff, to start a new life. So I don't know, maybe somebody needed to hear that out there in Jesus land, that example. But because I'm actually work with a lot of people whose marriages are under, and I'm like, oh yeah, mine too. God will challenge that, and then it'll bring you closer. Sometimes he'll take it to the envelope, push it, and then give you comfort. Like, oh, I can appreciate more what I have and how fragile it is. And there you go. Now, isn't that better? Oh, but I don't want to do that. I know, but if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And then that's where you turn it over to Jesus. Okay, do what you need, because he will. He'll bring peace, but sometimes the peace he brings is going to have a rough edge to it. All right. Well, I know you got to go. If you have anything else to say it before we wrap.
No, I think that's it.
This is episode 3 of Jesus TV, also streaming live on Jesus Radio, www.getmorejesus.com. You can read the poems say it, Jonathan.
Oh, at thetracklesspath.com.
Yeah. And we'll be back on with episode 4 next week, maybe sooner, depending on what Jesus does. Have a good day, my friend, and all my friends out there. Oh, you know what, Jonathan? We got to do this one again.
We never recorded.
No, Jesus, hold it. No, we are recording. Hallelujah. I thought Jesus was doing one of those things, which I'm fine with. That's the beauty. You know what? I don't care. This is the thing that I finally got this, by the way. I don't care except in Christ. He gave me the thing. It's the mashup. You know what? I don't care if we didn't record this except in Christ. And so it is recording. So hallelujah. Because I want to go on to episode number 4. But if Jesus had done that, like, he wants us to do that one again. So looking forward to the next one.
All right.
Have a good day, Jonathan.
You too. Thanks.